Hi, welcome to the ObjectStudio product introduction. My name is Arden Thomas. I'm the Cincom Smalltalk product manager. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please send it to ardenthomas@cincom.com. This introduction is targeted to anyone new to ObjectStudio. First, welcome. Smalltalk is an incredible language, and ObjectStudio is a great way to use and develop applications using Smalltalk on Windows. Today we're going to walk through the product and highlight things that you need to get started, some things that you'll use all the time, and some things that you'll want to know for future needs. So first, let's look at the windows that we have here. This window I'm on right here is the launcher. It's your center focal point for launching off all your tools and applications. I'm using the personal use license version right here, which has a workspace, a getting started workspace open that has a great collection of resources to help you get started quickly. So there's a number of screencasts, links to tutorials, all really good things to help you get up and running quickly with ObjectStudio. We also have a sample browser that we'll stop by and look at later. So back to our launcher, one of the first things you want to see is save image and save image as. If you want to use this as an image-based development environment, the first thing you should do is come in and save it as a different name. Then every time you exit, you can save all your state simply by saving the image and then reopening that image, and you're exactly where you left off. The other way that some ObjectStudio developers use it is to save all their code when they're done and load it all back in a fresh image each time. That's a matter of personal preference. The Perm Save, if you've developed a large number of classes and a lot of code, doing a Perm Save moves all those classes and all those objects into perm space so they're not looked at for garbage collection repeatedly. Finally, to exit, you can simply choose Exit to exit the environment. In ObjectStudio, it shares a lot of libraries and classes with VisualWorks, and the shared tools can be loaded through load parcels. So you could go here, load parcels, and this will pattern match. So if I wanted to load something like class cloning, I could do that right here. ObjectStudio also has applications which are unique to ObjectStudio. So if you wanted to load, for example, the mapping tool or the modeling tool, two very powerful tools unique to ObjectStudio, you would simply select them and load them right here. If you simply had a Smalltalk file to load in, you could load that through Load File. Garbage collection is done automatically, but if you wanted to force a garbage collection, you can do that right here. Collect all garbage includes perm space. Settings, there are a lot of settings. Most of the defaults are pretty good. If you found you had decompiled code, you would want to check your settings for the ObjectStudio directory and the main directory above that right there. It basically is the base directory for where to find source code and all the things in the subdirectories beneath it. Some other useful settings, if I go to Tools, let me show you how this works. The most frequently used tool you'll use is right here, the browser. I'm going to bring a browser over here. And notice if you choose some things, you have a size font for all these lists. If you want to make the font larger, you can change that to large and apply it. Notice it changed. Likewise, making it small. And back to the default medium. The other one that I frequently use is in the editor right here. Now, here you can change the font that you're using and the font size. and that's for this section right down here, and for all your workspaces as well. So Verdana, by the way, is a great choice for a default font as well as Tahoma. But let's say you wanted to change and try something like Rubato, comma. I'll apply that. Now I'm using that new font. This list, it goes through this list and tries to find these fonts installed on your system. So if it didn't find this, it would go to the next one. You can also change the default, basically vary off the default size. So here I'm increasing it. I can decrease it, make it smaller. I'll go back to default. So there's also lots of other settings here that you can, warnings and things that you can turn on and off, but you can look at those when you get more familiar. I recommend starting with the defaults. The defaults are pretty good. The next item is Browse. Browse lets you can open the browser that we just looked at right here, the system browser. You can go directly to a class. You can find all references to that class, variable, or namespace. If you want to see who implements a particular method selector, you can find all the implementers here. Likewise, find all the senders of a particular method. And then there's also a finder here, and this is useful right here, Open Searchlight, which is a more capable search engine that's used by default in ObjectStudio. So let's say we wanted to find the class ordered collection. I could simply start typing it, and I can see the class ordered collection is right here. I can double click on that, and it opens up a browser on ordered collection. In ordered collection, I can see things by their packages. If I want to see the hierarchy, I just click on class. There's a whole screencast just on using the system browser, and I recommend you go through that. It's where you will spend most of your time in developing your application. Next, Debug. There's a process monitor that will show you the processes running on the system, and including the processes that you have running. So if you had a runaway process, you could come here, select it, and terminate it if you needed to. Other things in here are things, what are these things called probes? Well, let's check something out. So here I'm in the class ordered collection. Let's go to a method, and let's add after. So let's say I wanted to stop and debug or walk through this method. I can set the cursor to where I want it and then insert a breakpoint. This means stop once. This means infinity means stop every time, and 0 means don't stop at all, and you can also remove it. So this is useful here because if it's in a loop, if you had infinity, all of a sudden if it's hit 1,000 times, you could open 1,000 windows and have a big mess on your hands, or even manage to use up all your resources and crash your image. So once will stop you there, and subsequent calls will simply go through. Now back here, you can do some interesting things like browse probes. So if you have probes in a number of places, look, this finds the one probe I just set. And I can remove that right here, remove all probes, or you can do it right from here, debug, remove all probes, which is useful. Say you want to deploy your application, you want to make sure all the probes are gone. There we go. Up next is Store. Store is our source code control system. It allows you to put all your work into a database managed by Store. Now, this comes loaded in the PUL with Store, so I can connect to the Cincom public repository simply by connecting. Come back here, look at Publish Items, and I can see all kinds of contributed work, lots of tools, lots of things. Some of these are for visual work, some for ObjectStudio. I can go through here and load things right from here. So if I wanted something like this, simply select it, right click, and choose Load. Another thing, if you connect to a store, I can disconnect when I'm done. If you have your own store locally for all your work, or maybe one for your team, say you're using one for your team, if you choose Recently Published Items, it shows you all new versions for things that you have already loaded in your image, which is very useful as you're doing development. So if your teammate has put out a new version of something you're using, you can see it with Recently Published Items. Next up is Tools. Most of these tools have like the browser, the file browser. You can go directly to a file. Say you wanted to find a Smalltalk source file and load it in, you could use the file browser. Parcel Manager, which allows you to find the parcels that we saw before. So this has a lot of the things that are common between ObjectStudio and VisualWorks and allows you to find and load them. But a really useful one is the change list. The change list lets you recover changes after, say, a system crash, or say your computer lost power and you've been working for hours developing code. Well, as you develop, all the things are logged to a file, and you can recover all the work with the change list. So what you would simply do is say recover last changes. This will show me all the things that I've written or loaded. Then a pattern I like to use is remove old versions and then remove the same code as system. So you only have things that you don't have. Then you can forget them all, and then you can replay or choose them one at a time, right click and replay them. So that's a way to recover your code. Let's take a look at these icons right here, quick launch icons. This here is you will use when you want to create a new application interface, and we have screencasts on that. This allows you to, like under the file, to load a specific file, usually a Smalltalk file. You can click right here to save your image, click right here to open a class browser, very frequently used, and you can click right here to open an ObjectStudio specific workspace. In here you can type in expressions. For example, an array in ObjectStudio can be curly brace 1, 2, 3. This should be an array. This means execute. This means execute. Now I'll get back to that. Execute and inspect. So here we have an array, 1, 2, 3. Execute and out will write to the system transcript. So I can also do things like hello, out, execute that, and I've got that written directly to the transcript. And this is ObjectStudio specific, so any ObjectStudio overrides you'll get by using this workspace. Back to my launcher, packages. Like we could load parcels up here, I can come and load packages right here, such as I can load boss. I could have also done that from my load parcels. Controllers. An interesting thing, I'll show you some of the ObjectStudio Next Generation User Interface samples. The Next Generation User Interface is the new architecture for using and configuring Windows widgets. So there are good samples here that show you, and you can simply double click and see the example running. So this is essentially a date picker, a calendar app. And a nice feature in this example, if I click on About the Calendar, it takes me to the resource information on the Microsoft website so I can learn more specifics about this control. Let's close that. Open Windows. I have 3 windows open right here, and I can get to either of those simply by double-clicking on it. Back to my workspace, sample browser. My sample browser has lots of useful information. Let's say I want to go to list views. I can load the category. It tells me it's loading. I can go to an example, right-click on it. I can browse the code or open the example. So here's an example. Let's go to, I just loaded this. Let's see, tab list sorting demo. I can browse. Shows me all the code for this example, how it's initialized, and I can open that application up right here. So I can see the code, I can see the example, and you can reuse this code or the pattern in your own application. So another very good way to get started. One more thing I want to discuss is the help. You can get ObjectStudio help right here and go through the different things, all broken down in tree format, and get lots of good resources and information right there, as well as the PDFs that come installed with the products. You can go to an index right here and go to all these different pieces of documentation, these different guides to help guide you through using different parts of ObjectStudio. So that is our quick whirlwind tour for ObjectStudio. If you have any questions, comments, please send them to me, Arden Thomas, athomas@cincom.com. Have a great time with Smalltalk. Thank you.